Welcome to our podcast,
hmm
um,
We are,
hosted by me, Keone Buendia, and Graham Mitchell.
yes, sir. That's me. Today we're talking about William Theodore Ribbs. Um, I doubt any of you have heard of this man, but he has done quite a lot for this world. Um, but he is the very first African American to compete in IndyCar,
Hmm.
to compete in NASCAR,
Yep,
and to drive a Formula One car.
right. But he didn't technically drive in any races.
That's
He was a
pretty.
test driver for Brabham, which is still pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and he he received an invite from Bernie Ecclestone, who's like he's the all-seeing eye of F1.
The
You know,
commissioner,
he's the main man. He's the tip top, and he gave him the opportunity to test a car. Whether it was to say that they've had a black man in F1, or whether it was because Bernie Ecclestone wanted equality, we'll never know.
right,
Both are possible. But progress is progress, so really it doesn't matter.
right.
Um, in the like end of things.
Yeah,
But yeah, so Willie T. Ribbs, pretty impressive guy, huh?
yep. He's really cool, actually. He was born
Yeah.
in San Jose on January 3rd, 1956.
Mm-hmm.
He lived on his grandpa's farm, and his grandpa was a sort of a glass half empty kind of guy.
Yeah, he was motivational, but not intentional.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, William Ribbs tells us of a time where uh, his grandpa told him that being born black is a strike against him, which you can
Yeah.
understand, seeing as the time that he grew up in, latter part of the Jim Crow
Yeah.
era.
Yeah, and his grandfather probably saw and experienced lots of things. So my guess is he was like, I don't want my grandkids to have big ambitions for them to just be like smushed by some rich old white guy.
Right.
But he told him that, and then Mister Willie was like, "I'm gonna prove you wrong, bro." But he started his love of cars at a young age. He started at the age of 4, um, and he developed this love for racing and cars and everything. Um, and I think he worked on the ranch until he was like 9, um, or he started when he was 9. But what he did was when he was 13, he took the car and he would go out on the mountains and he would just drive around and learn car control and all that stuff. Um, so that was kind of his beginning into racing, kind of unconventional, but
Right.
that was his start into racing.
Yeah. Um, Now that we've kind of gotten past, where he got his start from, let's move on to his early racing career, where he couldn't find a seat in American Formula racing. So instead, he
Yeah.
competed in Formula 3 in Europe,
Mhm.
and then once he had finished that, he came back to the States to compete in Formula Atlantic. But during
Yeah.
the driver meetings, nobody would talk to him, and that kind of showed
Yeah.
the early adversities that he had to face. Um,
Yeah. I mean, he definitely he definitely faced a lot of issues, and Europe was a very different place from America, so
right.
a bit more accepting. But yeah, when he came back, he even had, I think he said it was 1985. He had a mechanic um, that it was when he was trying to compete in the Indy 500.
Right.
He had a mechanic. He didn't want him there at all. The mechanic didn't want Willie there at all. So he wasn't very helpful.
Right.
Obviously, probably openly racist.
Most
Um,
definitely.
Most definitely. And, so Ribs definitely had a lot of issues, and, getting to where he is or where he um, was not an easy thing.
Right. Um, so like you said, he was forced to withdraw in 85.
Hmm.
Then next year in 1986, where he wasn't having problems with incredibly racist mechanics, uh, he was on, I think it was the last day of qualifying, and he had already gone through three engines because the ones he was supplied with were subpar.
Hmm.
And so he did need, a fourth engine, but he just couldn't find one. Nobody was willing to help him out until I think it was, I don't remember who it was or which brand it was, but I think it was like Cadillac or something that gave him an old engine.
Hmm.
And he ended up
Yeah.
qualifying only to have his engine blow up like lap 5 of the actual race.
Yeah. And, it's crazy. He wasn't able, all the times that he tried, he could not find speed. And then there's one time where he hit 217 miles an hour, which is way above
Right, the
like the
213.
minimum he had to qualify. Um, it just so happens to be that one time he qualifies, his engine goes poof. Um, so, it was probably heartbreaking for him, but bittersweet in that he was officially like the first African American to compete in Indy 500. He broke that barrier.
Right.
Um, so,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then after he did qualify for that Indy 500, I think it was a couple years later that he was offered the test at Brabham, which unfortunately
Yeah.
didn't lead to him getting a seat, but it was still cool to
Yeah.
test
I
that.
mean, yeah, the fact that he got to drive at all, I mean, it's a milestone.
Hmm.
It might be a small milestone, but at the time, like, for African Americans, anything was progress.
Right.
Um, but yeah, he kind of, that all the racing he did paved the way for people, which we'll get into later. But for now, I want to talk about his NASCAR experience.
Right.
Um, and I hate to do this, but what's our
We are at right around 8 minutes,
time? Okay, cool. We're gonna have to get through this quick then because the software cuts off at 10 minutes.
which is
So
wonderful.
NASCAR, he received death threats as soon as he got in. Just rolled in like it were nothing.
Right.
But yeah, so that forced him to withdraw. So he competed, but he it was short lived. We'll put it
Right.
that way. But
Even, him competing, even though it didn't really lead to anything at the time. Like you look now, and we have drivers like Bubba Wallace in NASCAR, and Lewis Hamilton in Formula One, who are of African American descent and are driving, and nobody thinks anything of it. Like
yeah,
it's something that's accepted and wanted, as opposed to
yeah,
something that's fought against. Like Lewis
yeah.
Hamilton is now a seven-time world champion, which is tied for the most world championships.
It's systems of wins, poles, fastest laps, everything. He's
Yep.
the greatest. He has the most of everything except for championships. But he fights in 2020. He fought for like the George Floyd, Breonna
Right.
Taylor stuff. He wore shirts when
Uh huh.
you know there's
Underneath the
a
racing suit.
yeah, which you're not supposed to do, but he
Right.
still did it. And then Bubba Wallace, he had a noose hanging from his garage. I think it was at Talladega.
Right.
Someone claimed it was to pull the garage down, but we all know a noose
Yeah.
is a noose.
So
Um,
we're like way short on time now. So we have 15
how
seconds.
much? Okay. So that's our presentation.
Yeah.
We'll give you more information in class.
If you
Thank
need
you
it
for
or
listening to our podcast.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.